While we were editing this episode, we heard the sad news about the passing of David Lynch. So before we go on to our usual stuff, I'd like to say a few words. And this one hurts. The uh, the word legend is used a lot these days, but hyperbole aside, never has the moniker been more apt than for David Lynch, whose boundless creativity and love of art was an inspiration for so many of us. What can be said that hasn't already, and by those much more eloquent than I? So I'll go with my personal feelings for this one. I had seen The Elephant Man and his adaptation of Dune as a young child, but knew nothing of who directed them at the time. That all changed, well, everything changed, when I saw the pilot of Twin Peaks. I was a teen at the time, and while I knew it was scheduled to be broadcast, I had heard it described from several sources as a simple soap opera, so I'd kind of written it off before it even began. But I saw that first episode on broadcast, and I was hooked. It was like nothing I'd ever seen before. It was that show that led me to check out Lynch's other works. And again, it's something that said a lot, but I'm honestly sincere when I say that his work literally changed my life. His resume had a profound influence on so many of us fellow artists, and though I say fellow, none of us could even hope to compare to his genius, not just in film, but in his art, his words in print, and his music. Everything he touched, he lent his own particular style to, from his first early work right through to his attempts to converse with his fans. I recall the days of the pandemic lockdown and how he would get us through it with his daily weather reports and his numbers. He helped those of us who felt alone and distant feel closer. He wasn't just an artist, but a gentleman, in every sense of the word. His work was unique, not just in terms of aesthetics, but in vision itself. He really was one of the greats, and the outpouring of grief and love I've seen regarding his loss from every corner of the artistic world, from filmmakers and reviewers to musicians, has been unprecedented. It's clear he meant so much to so many of us. He will be very sorely missed. And yes, again, it may be a cliche, but it's no less true. The world is a much darker place without his presence. And while I pass on the regards of everyone here at Silver Screen, I can only comment on my own personal grief at this loss. I will truly miss him. And so I say, Mr. Lynch, Godspeed, and wherever you are, sir, I hope you have nothing but constant clear blue skies and beautiful golden sunshine. Thank you for everything. Hello, cultists. Yes, it's February once again, officially the most depressing month of the year. Fear not, though, dear listener, we're here to brighten your spirits. At the very least, making you glad you're not one of us. Hopefully, we'll inject a little ray of sunshine into your world as we look at another slice of cult magnificence. And this month, we're taking a look at another underappreciated gem as we take a deep dive into the sci fi horror of Night of the Comet. And if you're a fan of this one, we've got a special treat in store for you, lucky people. Stick around if you want to see what that is. And if you're not a fan, then obviously I can't help you, sorry. But you're still welcome to stick around. Bear in mind, there will be spoilers, and yes, the movie's now over 40 years old. But if you avoided them for this long, we would hate to be the ones to ruin the movie for you. So if you're concerned with such things, then pop off, watch the movie. We'll keep your seat nice and warm for when you return. To everyone else, welcome. I'm DK, your regular host on these things, and this month I'm joined by special guest, teacher, actor, and internet personality, Mr. Jason Gaston. Welcome.
Well, it is a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Not a problem. I'm surprised you've managed to find time in your schedule.
Oh, I surprisingly do very little in life. It's honestly everybody says you're so busy all the time while I'm sitting on the couch eating popcorn out of my belly button and I'm just like, "What?"
You've recently turned from a trip, is that right?
Yes, I returned from visiting Anchorage, Alaska in the middle of winter because I am a crazy pants person.
Do you have family there, or was it just something that you wanted to do?
I am considering moving there in a couple of years after my oldest graduates high school. And I just went up there because I always said that if I am serious about going to Alaska, I need to go to Alaska in the wintertime. And so I just did that. And I still want to move there because Alaska in the wintertime is spectacular.
I did see your pictures of the Northern Lights. So
Oh, life changing. That was on the plane leaving Anchorage. I hadn't seen them my entire trip there because it was cloudy or I just missed them. And I just happened to look out the window and just on this plane full of people, 2 a.m. in the middle of the air, I just squeal at the top of my lungs. Yeah, it was like it was the William Shatner, there's something on the wing of this plane moment.
I've noticed you do like to go out and explore the world as it is. Is that something that's always appealed?
Oh, absolutely. This world is an amazing place, and I think that the more of it you see, the happier you are. It's also great to step outside of your comfort zone and visit cultures and places that are so far removed from where you have been all your life that, I don't know, to me it gives you a greater appreciation of the people around you and the world around you.
Indeed. Now you run your own movie review show. How have you found that? Is film something that's always held a special place for you?
Oh, I have loved film since I was a very tiny child. I think since I was a zygote. I always wanted to either act or write, and you know what they say, those who can't turned into critics, and so that's kind of what I became. I started my YouTube channel a couple of years ago. I've been doing TikTok and Instagram before that, and started the YouTube series in earnest about probably about a year and a half ago. I've enjoyed what I've done. I'm doing a podcast right now with my very good friend VHS Jace called the VHS Vault, where kind of like what we're doing right now, we talk about old cult movies. Sometimes we talk about new releases, and then we talk about franchises. I think I am okay to say this, so if not, VHS Jace, you can forgive me later. But the new franchise we're looking at are all of the Superman movies. We're going through them one movie at a time to talk about them, and personally, I cannot wait until we get to Superman 4. Can't wait.
For a moment there, I thought you were going to say Superman 3 because I seem to be the only one of my friend circle that actually likes that one.
Okay, I like that movie purely for Richard Pryor and that terrifying scene where the woman is Borgified inside of the computer. That gave me nightmares for years.
Yes, that is certainly a standout moment. So, do you consider yourself young at heart still?
I would rather be young at heart than an old fart, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm going to be 50 in 1 year and 5 months, and I don't know. I still have toys everywhere. I mean, do I play with them? Yes, but mostly they stay on shelves. I still love cartoons. I still read comic books. I'm definitely one of those people who believe that you're only as old as you feel because I honestly feel like I'm having more youthful adventures now than I was 10, 20 years ago.
I mean, do you have anything in particular in any area of fandom that you're really into right now?
Well, Masters of the Universe, obviously. I've always been into Star Trek. Star Trek is my other huge collector obsession, which I have tons of stuff from there. And I am an annoying Disney adult, except I'm concentrated mostly on the Haunted Mansion. I love the Haunted
Ah,
Mansion. And then I have a small but very respectable Mario collection of Mario figurines. And finally, I have a very large collection of Lilo and Stitch memorabilia, but it's in my classroom because my students keep bringing me things like offerings, and I love it so much. They just kind of get down on one knee and bring it up like they're Oliver, like, "Here, sir, would you like some more?" Oh, yes, thank you. I would never give a student better grades for bringing me items, but it wouldn't hurt.
Now, like many, you first came to my attention over the little videos you do where you read out the ludicrousness of signage. Some of those are absolutely hilarious. How did you find yourself getting into that?
It is such a funny story. I started doing TikTok during the pandemic, and it was purely out of boredom because there was nothing to do. So I just started doing TikToks about I had had gastric bypass, so I did a couple of videos about that. I did videos about being a dad and about having adopted children and just some of the stories about that. And then one day I went to I was on, I don't know what we were at doing, but I was with my sister and my mother. They wanted to go into the Walmart. I didn't want to stand in line. I didn't want to put on a mask. And I was just like, you guys go ahead. I'm just going to sit out here in the car. So they went in there. And so I'm just sitting out in the car, just doom scrolling on Facebook. And I come across a post from a local man, a yokel local man. And his name was Jack Yell. He would write the most bonkers responses to things that had nothing to do with anything. Like, if the news posted a Facebook story about today there's going to be a display at the mall about the wonderful flowers that come out of the botanical garden, he would respond with, President Trump is the best president of the whole world, and if you don't believe it, you can go to hell. And everything, he would misspell every single word. You could tell he was basically like typing by headbutting his phone. And so I started reading it out loud just to try to pronounce it phonetically, and I started laughing at myself. And I just read it on TikTok with it green screened on the background, because they have that wonderful feature that'll green screen you anywhere.
Yeah.
And it just took off from there. I think I did it 2 other times, and the third one just for some reason or another went viral, and next thing you knew I had 10,000 followers, and then 50, and then 100, and I'm just sitting there wondering what the hell is going on. I'm an old man, and I'm not that aesthetically pleasing, and I'm really not that charming. What is happening here?
Do you like Google these kind of things now, or has it reached a point where people actually send them to you?
I am a member of several Facebook and Reddit groups where they will pop up, but 90% of the things that I read online are sent to me by people who watch me, and I'm always incredibly grateful for that kind of thing.
Yeah, going back to it, you're also an actor. Have you got
Yes.
anything interesting coming up? Anything in the pipeline, perhaps?
I do voices for an animator in Tokyo, who I met over there and became really good friends with. As a matter of fact, one of the first parts I ever voiced for him was Skeletor.
Is that the Evil Lynn does Zoom
The
dating?
dating with Zoom dating with Evil Lynn. Yes.
Yes, I in preparation for this, I watched that earlier, and yeah, I had a bit of a chuckle with that one.
Yeah, I enjoyed doing that so much, and I've done a couple of other things for him. I do have a project potentially that's coming up that I really can't talk about right now, but I'm very excited about it. So cryptically, you'll just have to wonder what that is until I find out if I can announce it or not.
Finally, and it's a question we ask all our first-time guests: if you were stranded somewhere and you had just one cult movie that you could take with you to watch, what would be your pick and why?
Well, my cult pick would probably be 1986's Return of the Living Dead, because
Ooh.
I enjoy that movie so immensely. You look at it, and on the surface, it's this dumb zombie movie, but if you look deeper, it is a fantastic comedy. It is a biting social commentary, and it takes so many things with the genre and was so groundbreaking that many of those groundbreaking things it did became staples in later movies, like zombies eating brains. Zombies never
Yeah.
ate brains before Return of the Living Dead. And I also have this weird thing about the movie where I watched it whenever I was very young, and I thought I understood how anatomy worked back then. And then you had the nude dance, and little 10-year-old me is watching the nude dance saying, why does she look like a Barbie doll? I thought it would be different down there. I had no idea that the actors had been forced to wear these latex pants, basically, to make them look
Yeah.
smooth. And it like messed me up for the longest time. I went into this spiral of this existential, I thought I understood. I thought I understood. I don't know. I guess I was at that point where I thought I knew everything, and then this movie came out and shattered that illusion. And it turned out that I did know everything. It was just this movie was an illusion.
Yeah, that's a good one. It's a good choice. And it still holds up as well. That Tar zombie still looks fantastic.
Tarman is the best zombie ever created. Ever. Period. Exclamation mark. End of discussion. If you have a different opinion, you're just wrong. Tarman looks amazing, and anytime they tried to recreate them for one of the sequels, it was never as good.
So yeah, with regards to your choice of Return of the Living Dead, that is a very nice choice. Yeah, if you want to see what all our guests to cult classics would choose as their pick, then please check out the list, our Silver Screen Letterbox profile. But yeah, now we have that. If it's okay with you, Jason, we'll get straight onto this month's movie.
I guess we ought to.
Yeah, we should get around to it at some point. Yeah, Night of the Comet. It's a 1984 science fiction comedy horror film written and directed by Tom Eberhardt, starring Catherine Mary Stewart, Kelly Maroney, and Rob Beltran as survivors of a comet that has turned the majority of people into either a pile of dust or a zombie that is turning into a pile of dust. The movie was released in the US on November 16th, 1984, earning over $3.5 million in its opening weekend, coming in at third place. It stayed in theaters for 6 weeks, grossed a total of $14.5 million against a production budget of just 700,000. It's also noted as one of the first mainstream films to carry the MPAA PG-13 rating. It received generally positive reviews, and after its release on VHS, Betamax, and video disc, ask your parents, kids, on August the 30th, 85, by CBS Fox Video, it further added to its growing cult status. The film has been in print more or less ever since, and like everything else we review here, Night of the Comet can be found on physical media as well as various streaming services dependent on your location. Regular listeners to the show will know that I'm forever thankful to late night TV, usually the BBC, for many of the movies that we end up discussing here on the show. And this is yet another one to join those ranks. I think the first time I caught it, it was around midway through, and I was intrigued, honestly. I found it enjoyable, despite not having a clue what was going on. So when it was repeated a few months later, I made sure to watch from the beginning, and I still love it. So yeah, how about you, Jason? What was your first experience with this one?
I don't remember exactly what year it was, but I can think this cable channel we have here called Showtime. Showtime would play unedited movies, and we had just recently gotten cable for the first time because before that we had antenna. And between movies, Showtime would play commercials for other movies that they would be playing at different times. And one of those commercials was for Night of the Comet. And I just remember watching this movie, which very briefly and very inaccurately, I might add, summed up the story of this movie. And I just thought, that sounds interesting. I want to watch it. And so I watched it. And back then, as a kid, I took everything seriously. So a lot of the humor went over my head. But I don't know. I really like this post apocalyptic, everyone is dead on Earth except for us kind of thing. And I just instantly loved the movie. And every time it repeated, I would watch it. And I went several years without watching it. And then it showed up on, I think, Netflix a few years later. And I watched it again. And finally, this time, I caught the humor. And I thought, this movie is actually a lot more brilliant than I gave it credit for. It's funny and it's witty and it's got an interesting original idea. I think this movie's great. I think that it's definitely one of the seminal definitions of what a cult classic is.
Definitely. Yeah, apparently when writing the script, Eberhard, he wanted to merge the idea of strong female protagonist with his love of post-apocalyptic films set in empty cities. Now, for the women, he was inspired apparently by Ginger Rogers, but further inspiration, real life teenage girls who he was interviewing while filming PBS specials. Now, without telling the girls details about the script's premise, he asked them to describe how they would react to an apocalyptic event. And the girls just saw the scenario as an exciting adventure. And the only downside to the experience when he brought it up was the subject of dating. So, yeah, he was definitely onto something when he wrote this. Yeah, what do you think with regards to the writing of this? You say you didn't pick up on a lot of the humor until, when you watched it recently. So both dialogue and scripting. What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, I think the dialogue is very sharp, and I think it is genuine to teenagers of the 1980s in particularly. The way that they are concerned with things that honestly don't matter. What about dating? What about boys? Do you think he likes me? Everybody's dead around you, Samantha. My gosh. Where are your priorities? That's the thing. Teenagers don't have priorities. And I like that. I like movies where the characters have fun. The apocalypse is usually seen as something that's bleak and depressing because it would be. But you know what? A little bit of escapism is fun because who hasn't dreamed of waking up one morning and everyone in the world's gone? You can do
Yeah.
whatever you want. You can be whatever you want. You can go wherever you want. I love to watching that type of wish fulfillment granted to characters who are just a joy to watch. I think that Regina and Samantha are just really fun characters. They say fun things, and while they don't exactly have the greatest priorities in the world, they're not horrible human beings. They're characters that you root for, that you want to see succeed in a way. And Hector's right up there as well. He's definitely a little bit more, I think, survival minded than Samantha and Regina, but at the same time he's also somebody that you understand and you get where he's coming from.
Yeah, and I think their attitude is reflected in some of the dialogue choices, like later on when Jeffrey Lewis is saying to Catherine Mary Stewart, "Are you pregnant?" And then she says, "Oh, I thought I was once," and he says, "That's not important." And she's like, "You're kidding me? That was the longest 3 weeks of my life."
Yeah. I laughed so hard whenever I heard that whenever I was older. Like I said, whenever I was younger, those jokes just went over my head, but now I just appreciate just the fun social commentary on teenage life. And again, Catherine Mary Stewart is such a fun actress. I remember seeing her in The Last Starfighter,
Yeah,
and then after that, I'm not sure if I know that she's got a career because I looked her up because I'm like, where else have I seen this woman before? So she has appeared in other works. It's just that she just never really made it as big as I wish she would have.
yeah, she was a very good actor, and I'll confession time. Seeing this at such a young age kind of informed my choices going forward. So when I see Catherine Mary Stewart, who's a good-looking, ass-kicking girl who knows comic book lore and is more bothered about playing video games than doing what she's told, I mean, that's my ideal woman right there.
Oh yeah,
You
and the
know?
fact that she loved Tempest. Tempest was my favorite arcade game back then. So instantly, I was just like, I like this person.
So yeah, I mean, the script aside, there, as we said, there's some really great dialogue, and it's just treated as throwaway lines. There's a little scene where her and Hector, Robert Beltran's character, are getting to know each other, and she asks him if he's going to come back, and he says, "What will you give me if I come back?" And she just goes, "Texas." I just love little touches like that because there's so many little quotable bits in this movie, and it's not treated like a quotable film. When you look at things like Pulp Fiction or Princess Bride, that kind of thing, everybody knows those, but there's some real gem lines in this.
Oh, there are a ton of them. Some of the insults in this movie I think are classics. Like you were born with an asshole, you don't need Chuck. I love that. I used that for a while. Whenever Samantha gets the phone call and they ask her what they said, she goes, "I don't remember. I didn't write it down. I just thought that's me."
Yeah. I did like that she says when she's at the station and she's saying they're taking requests from all you teenage mutant comet zombies. Apparently that was the working title of the movie at that
Yes,
point.
and it was a brilliant title. They should have kept it.
It was. It suited it. Yeah, I just think it's written so tightly. I mean, granted, the scientists, other than their supposed face to heel turn, which you can kind of see coming, they're one note characters. But the main characters, such as Regina, Samantha, Hector, I think they're fantastic. As you say, it's a shame that you didn't see them in more.
Yes.
Uh, yeah, and I will say, it's set at Christmas, so like Die Hard, Night of the Comet is a Christmas movie.
It is, yes. Yes. That's what they mean by a silent night because everyone's dying. Everyone turned into dust.
Yes. Although it was convenient for it to rain at the end.
It
I
was.
did like that. Now the streets are clean too.
That talk about comic book references. That's a reference to Crisis on Infinite Earths because the skies in Crisis on Infinite Earths were red. until the
were red,
good guys
yes.
won, and then they turn blue. So there you go.
Ah,
That's what I think. That's what I think.
yeah, I never put that out there.
Yeah.
Very good, very good. Yeah, there was a big use of sunset filter on this.
Yes.
Yeah. Although I do like how, they kind of incorporate that into the script and made the smog and the red glow. They made it a part of it. It wasn't just there for their sake, like looking at a Michael Bay movie. I'm looking at you, bad boys.
Yeah, can you imagine the realization at some point whenever you're driving down the street in a motorcycle to go to your parents' house to see if they're alive, and then it dawns on you, oh my God, I'm breathing in dead people.
Yeah. I do like how they kind of made that a plot point as well. How all these brilliant scientists sealed themselves away in that bunker and then forgot that they left the ventilation on.
Well, a group of people is only as smart as their dumbest member.
Yes. Yeah, so with regards to direction, I do love, and it's a shame because, like Catherine Mary Stewart, you don't hear much of Tom Eberhardt. And apparently, the producers at the time, Andrew Lane and Wayne Crawford, they clashed with him during filming. Eberhard went on record to later say they didn't understand the film and resented being assigned to such a low budget B movie. But earlier on, they attempted to have him replaced. They couldn't see what he was doing, thought he was doing a terrible job. But at the end of it all, Eberhardt praised their production skill and said the film couldn't have been made without their help. So I think that shows a level of class there.
Absolutely. I will also say that $700,000 budget, you see every dollar on screen, and you see dollars on screen that they didn't have. That is how good the production of this movie is.
It is. It's certainly one of the best looking apocalypses out there. I mean, those empty streets are haunting, and it's even more impressive when you know it's all practical. But
They filmed it at red lights, and they caught those segments between the time that cars were going by. That is
that's
such great guerrilla filmmaking. I love
it.
that.
It is, and it's so effective. So effective. I also like how it's not overly explained. I mean, obviously you have the kind of B movie narration at
I
the
love
beginning.
that part.
Yeah, it always reminds me of Little Shop of Horrors. You're placed to kind of almost, even though you see what's happening with those dazzling sky special effects, but you're almost placed in the role of Regina. It doesn't over explain what's happened. It just kind of drops you in where she is. As I say, you know what's happened, but you're still in the same situation. It when she's in the alley, it's really tense because you don't 100% know what's happening.
Yeah, you're just given a few plot breadcrumbs. You can follow them, but you don't really know where things are going. And I think that I think the opening of this movie was quite brilliant to have the narrator because, for one thing, it skips a lot of boring expositional dialogue that any movie today would have. And number two, it does exactly what you just said. It just lets people have enough information, but not too much.
Yeah, and I don't know what you think, but tonally, I think it nails it. Yes, it's humorous, but it is punctuated by these little scenes of people dealing with this kind of thing. Like when Hector goes to see if his mum, is okay. You know she's not, and when he gets to the house, it's a touching moment. Well, before the kid zombie turns up, uh, geez, now there goes neighborhood. But yeah, it's a touching moment. Apparently, the photos of his wife were actually pictures of various family members of Eberhard.
Yes, I heard that. I really like the touch that he comes in, has that quiet moment where he realizes that his family's gone. I understand at one point they wanted him to have like a complete emotional breakdown, but they decided against it, and I'm kind of glad that they did because I think that tonally it would not have fit in with the rest of the movie. But
No,
instead, he just quietly goes through the house and gathers up the pictures because he knows he's never going to see them again and he may not come back to the house again. And I just thought that's such a great choice. It
yeah,
sticks with the idea that the movie has about people, well, I don't want to say people, about teenagers kind of being only concerned with surface level details because that's it. It's a surface level detail. It's just a picture.
yeah.
I don't know. I'm having a very hard time putting into words what I'm trying to say here, but it just seems like to me it fits in with the tone of the movie better than Robert Beltran attempting to have an emotional breakdown because we saw what those looked like on Voyager, and I don't think it would have worked.
Yeah, I mean, credit where it's due for Beltran. He's more animated this than he was in the entire 7 seasons of that show. So
Oh yeah,
you know,
yeah, I fully agree. I think that the Robert Beltran we see in Night of the Comet is 50 million light years from the Robert Beltran that we got in Star Trek. And to me, again, it shows not only is Beltran talented, but it bugs me that he's talented when he chooses to be.
yeah, yeah. I still don't buy him as a truck driver though.
No, me neither. But we don't really see him as a truck driver, so that's okay.
Yeah, yeah. I do love that. Going back to the writing, as you brought up with regards to teenagers, that when it first happened, Samantha is all gung ho about this. That she enjoys what's going on. It's an adventure. She's in there in the radio station playing music, talking about finals being cancelled. Whereas, Regina's first plan is finding a cache of weapons to take care of themselves. It's only when Samantha falls asleep later that trauma comes out in her dreams. And
Yes.
then afterwards, she starts to realize what's happened, and she has that, scene just after the Uzi shooting. Well, Daddy would have got them Uzis, but
Yeah, I did notice that. I also kind of noted that even at that point, her dreams were all about herself. It wasn't about anybody she had lost. It was all about herself. What's going to happen to me? It wasn't about what's going to happen to her sister or what happened to her father. What's going to happen to me now? Again, that's that selfish indulgence of the 1980s popping up
yes,
again. And I'm not, again, it doesn't make you hate the character. It's just a sign of the times, and it's the tone of the movie.
yeah. If anything, it makes them more relatable. Well,
Absolutely,
not
because I
not personally,
honestly,
but I've never
well,
been a
whenever
teenage
I
girl,
was,
but
whenever I was that age, I probably would have had the same thoughts as well. Like, well, what's going to happen to me? I'm a teenager. I'm all that matters.
and I will say this was a whole year before Day of the Dead, so zombie dream sequences, it beat Day of the Dead on that one.
There you go.
There are a couple of touches in there with the direction that I really appreciate. The album that Samantha tosses over her shoulder in the radio station is the soundtrack for Valley Girl, which was
Yes.
briefly one of the most sought after albums of the 80s.
Yep.
And yeah, when Regina and Larry spend the night at the theater, a movie's playing. The audio is Night of the Living Dead.
Well, it's public domain.
Yeah,
So,
and then
it's the same thing with whenever they play Girls Just Want to Have Fun while they're shopping. That's not Cyndi Lauper singing the song.
no,
They
no,
got a different singer to cover it because they didn't think they could afford Cyndi Lauper's version of
exactly.
it.
And that's another. They really made this budget count. As you say, there are things on screen that are just phenomenal for the budget.
Yes. I kind of wonder if they even had permits a couple of times whenever they were filming some of the street scenes.
Yeah,
Which I'm
and
not going to accuse them of not. I'm sure they did the right thing, hint hint wink wink.
yeah, beautiful. Regardless,
Yes.
just beautiful. And not necessarily just on the street scenes. Later on in the complex where Regina's trying to escape, there's a scene where there's a really long corridor, and the lighting in that, I just think it's beautiful. It's really noteworthy. The cinematographer on this, Arthur Albert, did a really top-notch I think everybody did a top-notch job on this. I don't think there's a single scene for me that doesn't hold up. I don't know what you think with regards to the direction.
I think a good director can take a cheap movie and make it look like $100 million movie. And I think that this is one of those examples. And I think that the director did a fantastic job.
Yeah. I always cringe. Every time I've seen it, I always cringe when the loquacious zombies turn up in the department store.
Oh my gosh, they looked like a music band in the 80s with the sunglasses and the suits, and I could not remember who it was. But yeah, it was bad because I didn't know if they were zombies at first. I thought that they were just like regular people, and I didn't realize they were zombies until they showed the close up of that one guy. I was like, oh, okay, that explained it. But yeah, it's kind of a cringe scene. I completely agree.
Yeah. He says, "I'm not crazy, I just don't give a fuck." It is a cool line, if I'm being honest, but
Oh yeah.
I don't know. There's something about that that's kind of off-putting. Although I do love the framing in that where they are playing that for Cyndi Lauper,
Yeah.
and they have that shopping sequence, and it shows all the shoes, and she puts the gun down next to it. I think framing wise, it pretty much sums up the entire movie in just that one shot.
Oh yes, definitely. I don't know. There's just so much I like about this movie. So many clever things that I never noticed that I do now, and I think more people should see it. It's just great.
Definitely. I mean, I did try. Whenever I'm watching a film for, I always try to take notes, but I couldn't do it for this. I was just too busy enjoying the movie.
Yeah, yeah. It's hard to. It's hard to be studious and prepared whenever you have something like Night of the Comet playing in front of you.
Yeah. So I mean, it brings us to the acting, and as we said, we've already talked about Beltran. So we'll go to the others. The acting can be a little cheesy. It's a bit soap opera level in some places, but I think as part of a B movie, that's part of its charm.
Oh yeah, it's got this self-awareness about it where it's not really concerned with telling an accurate story about people after an apocalypse that kills almost every human on earth. It's more concerned with having fun with it. And so that's why I think that Catherine Mary Stewart and Kelly Maroney really shine in this movie because they are playing it pitch perfect to what I think the movie was trying to do. And that's another gold star for the director as well because I'm sure at one point one of these actors wanted to go dramatic.
Yeah.
They had to. It's like, no, you don't. I want to do this like really. No, no, no. You don't understand. You're gonna be chewing gum and you're gonna be talking out of the side of your mouth because you're a teenager and you don't care. It was great choices all around.
Yeah. I mean, they are very believable as sisters. Apparently, Heather Langenkamp auditioned for the role of Samantha, but they
That would have been
decided to go with
interesting.
Kelly, and I think Kelly is phenomenal in this. It starts off, she's bratty, she's smart-mouthed. I think neither of them get the credit that they deserve as actors.
I agree. And as for the character being bratty, you'd be bratty too if you had Doris as a stepmom.
That is very true. Very true. There, there is a particular line that Regina says, going on to the dramatic side, and it's not overly done, but there seems to be. I don't know what you thought. There was so much emotion in her voice where she's trying to convince Samantha, and they're looking up and down the street, and she's saying, "It's Saturday morning. Where are the goddamn kids?"
I saw that more out of frustration than anything else because her sister was just not getting it. And to me, it was
Yeah,
adding to the comedy because she's just like, where is everybody? Why are all these clothes out here? Where are the damn kids? I just thought that was
yeah.
funny. I don't know. To me, that is
I
the
did
most
like
dramatic
the.
part of the movie. But yeah, I just think it fit in with the humor.
I did like the. This is Doris, and she's just like holding the dress up and flapping it.
Yeah, the scene of her pouring the dirt out of Chuck's shoe is actually one of the shots they had in the Showtime trailer. And I just thought, oh, people get
Ah.
turned into dust. That's neat.
Yeah, I don't need to be around you in an apocalypse. That.
Probably not because I will go to cannibalism if I have to. I'm just letting you
Oh,
know.
good grief! Oh, good grief! But so, with regards to the acting, it's a small group. So it's not what you'd really call a huge cast. Apparently, the two police officers in Samantha's dream sequence, they were actually the cops who worked on the movie Stopping Traffic, so filming could be done.
Yes,
So-
I heard about that. Again, hey, you know what? We need some cheap actors. Hey guys, you want to earn $20?
Yeah, and it's iconic. They're even used in the movie poster, as you can see
Yeah.
from my icon. And so when you see it and you think, because when I got it on I bought it on Blu-ray when Arrow released it a few years ago. The cover is the cop, and I just remember thinking, I don't remember them being that important, and I was right. But it is
Well,
an iconic image.
well, you
Yeah,
know, they may not be that important, but they are visually striking.
exactly. So yeah, with regards to actors, have you got an MVP in this one? It's kind of hard for me to differentiate between the two playing the sisters.
It's hard for me as well, but I think between the two, and again, this is just my own opinion. I think that both Kelly Maroney and Catherine Mary Stewart were spectacular, but I think that Catherine Mary Stewart was the correct choice to be the lead in this movie because I found her more relatable than I did Samantha. And I think that she carried the right amount of sarcasm and genuine concern. And quite honestly, I think it all came down to the end of the movie when they have those two children and she's telling them, she's taking pictures of them and she's telling them, don't cross the street until we have the light. And I'm just like, she's trying to be grown up for the kids' sake and she's overdoing it. And I think that that is
Yeah,
it was such a sweet moment. And the fact that the kids aren't even into it, they take a picture, they smile, and then they roll their eyes and they slump. I don't know. I just think that is the funniest thing. And she's selling it so well. I think that a lesser actress would have completely blown that last bit of the movie, but she went with it. She went with the full cheese, and she made it work. So Catherine Mary Stewart is definitely my MVP of this movie, but Kelly Maroney is a very, very close second because I also think she was absolutely fantastic in this movie. Both the leads were fantastic. I don't see how they could have made a better choice than these two actresses.
exactly. You've pretty much said everything I could say, but better.
Of
So,
course, yeah, that's what I do.
yeah, the bit at the end where she's taking the photos of the kids and she's going, "Oh, you're so cute." I love that scene.
Yeah. Honestly, I would be interested in seeing a legacy sequel to this movie. Just and I mean make it completely unrealistic. The buildings are still standing, the power is still on, but what has happened to these characters 40 years later? I want to know.
I think Hector would be dead.
Why do you say that?
Kind of just don't want to see Robert Beltran. Yeah,
Well, we could do him like they did Icheb in Star Trek Picard. Just have him in there for like 5 seconds and then like kill him painfully.
yeah.
Not
Or
don't even have Beltran, just have like somebody else. I don't You could
pull.
recast somebody. You could have there. You know what? Pedro Pascal, he'd be about the right age, wouldn't he?
Oh God, yeah, oh,
Let's just
yeah. I
and
would
you
pay
could and
that.
you could have the same narrator at the beginning. 40 years later, the world is still devastated. Also, the part of Hector Gomez is now being played by Pedro Pascal.
Like they do in theaters
Yeah,
when
because
when
because
the
our
performer
audience
is
seems
sick.
our audience also likes The Last of Us, and so we thought that would earn us a little bit of extra money.
Do you think that would work? Do you think a sequel at this point would work?
I think it would work depending on the script. I think you have to be very careful with legacy sequels. I think that sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. I think one's legacy sequel that worked was Ghostbusters Afterlife because I
Yeah,
think it was written in a very smart and intelligent way. Was it nostalgic? Absolutely. But was it also heartfelt? Absolutely. And then you have Beetlejuice was also another good one.
yeah,
Because they kept it the same tone. The characters were very true to themselves, whereas something like Dumb and Dumber 2 was just dog crap from the beginning to end because they were just coasting by on the nostalgia. So if they were to do a sequel to Night of the Comet, it would have to be they would have to have the right script. Otherwise, I say don't even bother. And I think with
yeah,
legacy sequels, you need to be more careful with the script than you would with a regular movie because people love these characters. They go into these movies with the love of the characters preloaded, and you can definitely taint somebody's memories of a movie that they love with a bad legacy sequel. It's hard to
yes,
pretend like that legacy sequel doesn't exist. It's hard for me to watch Dumb and Dumber without thinking of how bad that sequel was. Both sequels. I forgot that there are two sequels. But it's easy to forget one of them because it wasn't Jim Carrey or Jeff Daniels.
yeah. Well, apparently they're on about a remake. In October 2018, Orion Pictures hired Roxanne Benjamin to write this remake. Now, in April 2019, Benjamin confirmed she'd submitted the script, though by the time of, well, a year ago, January 23, Benjamin stated that the remake was still alive, but was slowly going through the process at Orion, which suggests to me that she's kind of kidding herself, I think. Is it?
Yeah, I don't know. I could see a remake happening, but again, I think a remake is less risky than a legacy sequel. But if they did do a remake, I would hope that they would keep it fun and not go The Walking Dead or The Last of Us as far as tone goes, because movies like this, you gotta have fun with them. You can't just be down and dreary the entire time.
Exactly. From what I can gather, the production designer, with regards to that, John Muto, used what he described as a comic book sensibility for the film's look. Characters were given specific colours, with the bad guys in blues and greys and the sisters in brighter colours. Yeah, Regina's were deeper than Samantha's to reflect Regina being more, it says here, intellectual than Samantha, and Samantha wackier than Regina.
I could see that. I could also see with the bad guys how the moment that you can tell that they're turning is the moment that they put sunglasses on. Something very
Yeah,
simple. But yeah, sunglasses are evil. It's like gloves in Disney movies.
yeah. And again, with regards to production design, they squeezed every last drop. I mean, the forced perspective and miniature work on the long shots of the complex.
Yes.
There was some, as we said earlier, the typical kind of 80s music video effects when the comet was passing overhead for the sky as people are watching. Yeah, there's zombies. The zombie makeup isn't too bad, but it's not really an effects picture, I would describe it as, and you don't see the zombies all that much.
No, but they are effective. They're always there. They're always
Yeah,
a threat, and I like that.
and I've got to I've got to read this out because I just found this fascinating. The waving clown in the first shots of downtown LA, it's the same one that Pee Wee Herman lost his bike to in Pee Wee's Big Adventure.
Oh, be darned.
Yeah. Yeah, with regards to the soundtrack, David Richard Campbell, I thought it was nice. I'm a bit of the synthwave fan, so I kind of dig this. Nice little 80s electronic, some electric guitar in there. As you've mentioned, the Cyndi Lauper, that's not Cyndi Lauper. I think they did all right on the soundtrack. It doesn't, it feels dated without feeling too dated, if that makes any kind of sense whatsoever.
No, I
It's
get what
very
you're
appropriate
saying.
for the
I, I
time.
I think even now, I don't listen to the music and think, wow, that music really sounds 80s ish. No, it sounds like classics. It sounds like, oh, yeah, that's good music.
Yeah, and it never feels like it's forced in there, like you'd get with kind of some soundtracks. It always feels like it's part of the story.
I really liked the way that the movie made the songs go from being part of the score to being diegetic. The sunglass zombies, for example, smashing the boombox and that cuts the music off. I love that kind of thing.
Yeah,
It's to me, it's always clever.
I love it when they do that in movies. Apparently, Joss Whedon, enough said, has cited this
Yeah,
film as a big influence for the original script of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah. Though Mary Warrenoff, who played Audrey in this, apparently doubted the film would have any longevity, saying in '86 that it is not a cult movie at all, it is a fad movie. She went on to explain that the film will date very quickly because it's about Valley girls shopping at the mall and the bomb. It's not ahead of its time and it's not behind its time. It's just a combination of in elements. She doesn't sound like she was happy with this film at all.
Now, is that a recent interview with her, or is that from back then?
That was back then. That was in
Okay.
'86, so it's just 2 years after release.
Well, hopefully her attitude towards the movie has softened a little bit, because I can
Yeah,
kind of see where she's coming from. I can see the concern, but and with all due respect, she was wrong. That's just it.
yeah,
She was wrong.
yeah. Because as with all our movies, this one it's pretty much officially, as much as that term can be used, labeled a cult classic. Some of them fit in that criteria more than others, and I think this one definitely counts. When you look at some of the movies from that year, and I'm talking things like Splash, Neverending Story, Temple of Doom, Elm Street, this one sort of gets lost in the mix. It's not very well known outside of the circle of fans, and I honestly think that's a crime. I think it's a fantastic B movie and one of the better twist zombie movies out there. I mean, what about you? Do you personally consider it a classic, and do you think it deserves that?
I definitely do consider it a classic. It is very clever. The apocalypse is very original. I don't think I've seen another one where a comet turns people into dirt. And it's just, I keep saying this over and over again, but I got no other way of saying it. It's fun.
Yeah,
It's a fun zombie comedy that a lot of the humor can be overlooked the first time. And my definition of a cult classic is a movie that is held in high regard by a small portion of people. Maybe it's not well known, but a small portion of people have a true appreciation for it. And I think as somebody who likes cult classics like this, it is our duty to spread the gospel of Night of the Comet and to bring more people into the fold so that they can appreciate this fantastic apocalyptic comedy.
definitely. Hopefully, this will go some way to getting a couple of converts on there at least.
Well, here's hoping.
Yeah. So, with that in mind, what is it about this that does it for you as far as this film goes? Is there a particular aspect that stands out? And it can be anything: writing, a certain performance, technical aspect. What makes you keep coming back to this one?
I like the fact that it's teenage wish fulfillment and it never stops being teenage wish fulfillment. The characters don't really grow a whole lot. They don't learn any lessons. It's just the apocalypse happens, they have fun, adults come over to ruin their fun, they stop the adults, and then they continue to have fun when the credits are rolling.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like the fact that the movie knows what it is, the characters know what it is, and they just continue. And I really enjoy that devil may care attitude that this movie has.
Yeah, the apocalypse is kind of treated matter of factly by the characters, and I
Yeah.
just I love it. Yeah, my favorite aspect it's just the 80s-ness of it all. The sunset filter, the neon in the radio station, the Tempest game, the shopping mall, electronic soundtrack. It's a zombie movie, but as you say, it's just really enjoyable. I can't help but love it.
You really can't. There's I don't know. I guess the biggest criticism that I've seen detractors put up against this movie is that it's stupid. And my only response to that is yes, but that's what
Yeah,
makes it great.
exactly. It doesn't try to be anything more than what it is, and that's what I love about it. It doesn't pretend that it's high art. So, yeah, that's what we here in the studio think. But how about you out there? To answer that, we're once again going to go over to the good lady Vian to hear our opinions on this one. And Vian, just what do people think on this one?
Hey DK, so Night of the Comet, not one I've ever even heard of, let alone seen, but it looks like a few of our people have some thoughts here. Paul Whitbread saw this in cinema when it first came out and again on VHS. Jeffrey Jarlowski loves it. Chris McBride gives it 5 out of 5, says it's an awesome movie, so maybe I'll have to check it out. Al Winter, I like it. Wish it had more mutants, but it's fun. More mutants is always good. Jeff Tilley, I wish I could say it was more on my radar. Sometimes it's a matter of how really available to watch. As far as I can tell, it has only ever been available in Australia on disc as an import. And man, that is a common refrain I have heard for years and years. And that's a problem with so much media being US-centric for the past, 100 years. Luckily, I think we are branching out more and more into other parts of the world, producing film and making it available for a wider audience, which, has pros and cons, but that's a different discussion. Gavin Revitt says, an odd one which appeared out of nowhere in a slew of movies with that B feel. Catherine Mary Stewart was prominent in my mind as the only role of hers I knew that wasn't Alex Grogan's girlfriend Maggie. Unbeknownst to me, sidekick Robert Beltran was a face that I'd come to know another 10 years or so later as Chakotay, arguably his most famous role. Then there's the dependable pop-up from Jeffrey Lewis, who up until then was either Clint Eastwood antagonist or graveyard worker turned victim Mike Ryerson from Salem's Lot. Took it to much the same vein as any 80s flick. I hold it as one of those movies which carries all the feels of the times and more escapist fun than a horror thriller, and he gives it 4 out of 5. Adrian Sherlock enjoyed it at the time. Simple, basic, with a certain dash of hip attitude, and seemed pretty entertaining. However, it was a little inconsequential, didn't stick in the memory with any great resonance. Fun all the same. And then My Figure Universe commented, one of their all-time favorites, 4 stars, so somebody really likes it. So, maybe one for the viewers who aren't familiar with it to go check out. So, with that, back to you, TK.
Thanks, Vian. Not much, but there is a range there. As always, thank you to everyone who took the time to let us know what you think on our socials. And if you feel you missed out, it's never too late to drop us a line at the usual links or in the comments on this one. We're always listening. Now, normally at this point, we conclude matters with our final thoughts on the movie, but this time we're going to do something a little different. I told you this was a special episode, and it's not just down to our good guest here today. Well, here it is. A short while ago, I had the chance to talk to one of the stars of today's movie, Catherine Mary Stewart. We spoke about Night of the Comet, amongst other things. So before we head to our regular roundup, here's a clip of that interview just for you out there.
The craziest thing that happened on the shoot. Well, there's, I always think about, I don't know that I've even shared this with anybody, but the first day of the shoot, I crashed my car on the way to the set. So that was a weird start. I sort of got there with my car. I could still drive it. And I sort of drove up and I'm like, so I don't know how I'm getting home tonight. I may be here. Anyway, it was just a weird sort of ominous beginning, I guess. But it ended up like they were very, very happy with the first day shoot. So that was good. These Mac 10s that we had, there's a couple of sort of amusing anecdotes. In our house, there's a photograph of Kelly and me, Sam and Reg with our father, the Green Beret, right?
Yeah.
And the Green Beret is actually a picture of Tom Eberhardt, the director, who also wrote it. And when the Mac 10s used to jam all the time, and that scene that you mentioned where we're shooting the car, basically,
Yeah.
it jammed. And then there's sort of this, it became kind of an iconic scene, which we had to sort of make up as we went along. The gun kept jamming. And Tom said to Kelly, just say, Daddy would have got us Uzis. And then I threw in, I didn't notice the difference. But so that sort of plays into the fact that he was our dad, in the photograph.
Yeah.
And he really wanted Uzis for the movie, but they were too expensive. So the producers didn't, they provided us with Mac 10s.
Oh, right.
So that was his little dig. It was like, Daddy would have got us Uzis. And then Tom Eberhardt is like, yes, I would have. So anyway, that's sort of a fun little thing. But yeah, those things jammed all the time. In general, it was pretty smooth. Like I said, we had really bizarre hours that we worked, but everybody was kind of in it together. One time the makeup guy, he was like the makeup hair guy, didn't show up. I think I don't know if it was a Monday or something, but he'd been out partying the night before, and he just didn't make it that day. So Kelly and I had to do our own makeup, which is fine. We know how to do makeup, but that was something. He says he doesn't remember that, but I remember very clearly. It's lots of. But what was so nice about it is at least I felt like I had the freedom to kind of explore different things. It wasn't like everything was set in stone. It was. And in fact, the producers kind of wanted to do more of a traditional zombie movie, which it was not what the script was at all.
Yeah.
So there was a time where we were shooting scenes like scary zombie stuff, and then the way it was written, and fortunately, the end product was, Tom's vision in the first place. And that to me is what makes it interesting and unique. And I think that also attributes to the longevity of the movie. It's just different. It's really a weird movie.
So hopefully that's whetted you guys' appetite. And if you want to hear the full interview where we talk more about Night of the Comet as well as the rest of Miss Stewart's career, then the link is in the description below. Please feel free to check that out. I had a great time talking with her, and I hope you enjoy listening to it just as much. So without further ado, we're back on track for how we usually round things up around here with our final thoughts and score out of 5 stars. And we always come to our guests first on this. We're polite like that. So, Jason, what would you give Night of the Comet out of 5 and why?
Oh boy, that's hard. Part of me wants to give it a 5 out of 5, and so I'm going to listen to that part of me. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5 because to me, I think that this movie does everything that it intended to do, and I think it did everything well. Now, am I going to sit here and say it's up there with my other favorites like 2001 or Doctor Strangelove? Absolutely not. But I think whenever a movie sets out to do something and it does it well, I think that that's reason enough to give it a 5 out of 5. And so there we go. I think 5 out of 5. Great leads, great story, great humor, fantastically directed, fantastically put together. I think a lot of motion pictures today could learn from Night of the Comet, and I think that they should.
Nice. I'm going to be the evil one here because I've only given it 4.5.
How dare you?
So I know. And the reason why, I mean, it's cheap, and for an apocalyptic zombie movie, cheerful. Okay, it's no Train to Busan. It certainly, as I said, wouldn't be considered high art by many a critic, but it's a B movie. Always was intended to be a B movie, and it doesn't try to be anything else. And in that respect, Tom Eberhard nailed it. It's very much a product of its time with all that entails, but it still holds up remarkably well for me. The acting can range from soap opera upwards, but again, that's part of its charm. And Catherine Mary Stewart and Kelly Maroney are totally believable as the sisters, with the tone running the gamut from poignant to silly when necessary, and pulling it off. And while the FX are kept at a minimum, what Eberhardt and his cinematographer pull off on such a small budget is just amazing. It's not perfect, but it's still as enjoyable to me now, 40 years after its release. I just wish more people knew about it. So, yeah, as long as you set your expectations going into this one for what it is, I doubt you'll be disappointed. So, averaging both Jason and my own score, we're left with A Night of the Comet notching a cult classic score of 4.75 out of 5, which it's not bad. It's not the best score, but it does hold its own. What do you think, sir?
I'm fine with a 4.75, even though I think it should be around a 4.9 or a 5. But you do you. It's fine.
I will say again, it's one of those that you consider a shame that more people haven't discovered it because it doesn't feature in ranking lists often. I do think it's gradually starting to get its due though, which I hope continues because to me it's a bit of a gem.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a movie that should be introduced to more people. I just think a lot of the problem to this movie not being so well known today is just ignorance. And I don't mean ignorance in a bad way. I mean ignorance as in you don't know it exists. And
Yeah.
I really think that if you are a fan of this movie, you should show it to more people and say, "Hey, watch this movie. This is great. It's hilarious. It's funny. It's done in such a great way. The two women in this movie are tremendous. Robert Beltran is there too. Just watch this movie.
Yeah, I mean at the
Spread
very
the
least.
gospel."
Exactly. At the very least, we're out here raising our banner for the movie ourselves. So, you out there, if you like this one as much as we do, share with your friends. We'd love to be held responsible for recruiting more to this cause, wouldn't you say, Jason?
Absolutely, absolutely. I would love to be a prophet of this movie.
Nice. And yeah, once again, that's it for this episode. We here hope we've brightened your day, even if just a little. And if we've been enthusiastic about this one enough that it's making you want to go pop it on for a viewing, well, we can't deny that it gives us a buzz here. And for our part, all we can say is you're welcome.
Yes.
Speaking of us here, all that's left for me to do today is thank our guests for putting up with the amateurism that is called classics. So, Jason, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for joining me today. It's been a pleasure.
Well, thank you for having me. And if you don't mind a little bit of self promotion on my part, I would ask you to please join me over at YouTube. The channel is Jason Roy Gaston. All one word. We do movie reviews, we do podcasts. I don't know, I like to think we're not terrible at it. So please come and give us a watch if you would. Also, I'm on a Star Trek podcast called Captain's Quadrant, and my friend VHS Jace just started his brand new show called Talking Tubi. So all great channels you should check out.
Are there anywhere else the listeners can find you?
Oh, you can find me on Instagram, TikTok. You can find me on Bluesky, and you can find me on Clapper. I'm not on X because screw Elon Musk.
Yeah, we did the same thing as a podcast a short while ago. Have you enjoyed your time with us today?
No, it's been awful. It's been the
well,
worst
that's-
thing I've ever done. No, I
That's
enjoyed
always
I
what we
enjoyed
like
it.
to hear.
No, it's always fun to talk about these little known classics with other appreciators of fine films such as this. And I had a great time today, and I'd like to thank you for having me.
Oh, anytime. I mean, you're welcome to come back at some point if you're up for it.
Absolutely. You just let me know when.
Brilliant. You'd be more than welcome. So yeah, I'll make sure those links to your socials and the your YouTube, they're included below. So listeners, please do and go check those out. We'll also post a link to our own socials. So if you want to drop us a line about anything, feel free. And don't forget to check out the rest of the Catherine Mary Stewart interview. It really is a good one. I would say that. And as always, if you had a good time today, then please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. We always want to welcome new cultists, and we want you to be as much a part of the show as we are. We'll be back next month with an occult classic. First Tuesday of the month, remember? So we hope to see you then. I'm missing you already. In the meantime, remember, Daddy would have bought us Uzis.
You have been listening to the Cult Classic Show, part of the Silver Screen Podcast. Created, written, and hosted by DK. Editing by Nick. Produced by Mike Wilson. Feedback section produced by Lady Vienne. Opening credits by Ian Sanderson. Music by Timeless Journey. Follow us on social media. Links to all of our social media pages can be found on our link tree. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. This has been a Mad Badger production for the Media Matters Podcast Network. Copyright 2024. Thank you for joining us. We hope to see you next time. And remember, no matter where you go, there you are.